So let's get started with this. This is the agenda for this day, for this week, I should say. So as you can see, not really much. It's just an introduction, but we're going to go deeper and deeper into methodologies, into approaches, how to do things, and yeah, converting R10 into a lab. I know the current situation, maybe it makes us a little bit of more, it puts us like fences in our way, in our path, but we will find a way to overcome those obstacles and try to make or try to replicate the methods, practice with the things that we're going to learn during this course. So as you can see, you will see more UX rather than experience design, which is the course being called and named, right? Experience design. So the reason is because experience design is the core of user experience field. So that's why we started, and I decided to bomb you a little bit with the UX rather than XD, which is experience design. Okay, so we're going to start with defining it, or trying to. Then we're going to look into the field itself, because it's you might be overwhelmed in the beginning. But by the way, before proceeding, I would like to know who's got experience with design in general. How many people here can tell me I have some experience in designing websites or applications or even products? Not related
are we talking applications?
One by one. Or can you raise?
Okay, you go. In here, I've got some experience. There are two different experiences. I think mainly it's in-game design. We create a game, and second one, a few months I work like a designer in film.
Awesome. That's already a valuable, good experience. Anyone else?
I've created some websites with HTML, CSS. Does that count?
John, yeah, anything counts. I just want to sense a little bit in terms of design, how much experience students do we have here, and of course it does count.
Okay, yeah. And also Photoshop for some time.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And if you enjoy that, there's going to be an enjoyable course for you. I mean, for everyone actually. Anyone else? No, not many. Okay, all right.
I've had experience in UX design.
UX design, you said?
In experience design, yeah, I have experience in experience design.
All right, you said a lot of experience. Why are you here?
I'm sorry, what? Come again?
You said a lot of experience you have in UX design. Do you have a job regarding?
No, I just said that. I just said I have experience. I didn't say a lot.
Ah, okay. Okay,
I was doing an internship in the company, and also I was attending the previous semester.
All right.
Contest.
Okay, that's
so yeah, I have some experience.
Okay. It's Vetsar, right? Or it's Vetsar?
Yeah.
It's Vetsar. Okay, it's Vetsar. All right.
Yeah.
We see some people with some experience. What I would like you friendly ask you guys with some experience, if you could divide. Don't try to collaborate together with experience, only with experience groups, but just spread yourself and help me actually in terms of guiding the groups, and so that would be cool to see. So if you have some knowledge, if you have already some experience, that would be cool to see how you also spread into different groups and not only working together in only experienced groups. So I hope, and I kindly ask you to do that when the time comes, okay, for practicals and so on. So we hear some experience. That's pretty cool. Let's get back to where's my presentation here. All right, then to understand, UX is a massive field. So we're gonna look into the concepts made. We're not gonna define every concept, of course, now, but we're just going to get familiar with what type of words, buzzwords are meant or are considered in the UX field. I do have a nice slide about the brief history of UX, and you will see that it's not as new as people think. Then we're going to talk a little bit, why is that a career? Can I make a career out of it? Is it a job? Because they're new. In our industry, ICT, we are constantly changing the job titles. I remember in the past when I was a student, I was, the database administrator. He was kind of the guy in companies, in banks, and big companies mostly. And these guys were like earning salaries, between 5 and 10,000 K per month, because these guys were having, in terms of permissions, a lot of power, and that was kind of a very, very respected and well-paid job. Now, since everything moved to the cloud, companies actually do not need much of these skills, and that database administrator job is kind of fading away. But it doesn't mean that a database administrator is losing his job, because if you are a database administrator, which means you probably held a title as a software engineer, you should just transition from one job into another one. So we see a lot of the similarities in the UX field, new jobs positions being invented, and then we're going to look a little bit more into what's going on in this UX career. Is it a job? Or what the heck is that? Okay, because a trendy thing nowadays, and we get a little bit confused. And after that, we just quickly go through the definition of so many acronyms in there that we have nowadays, and try to make sense of this, because if you make sense of this, then you probably know where your starting point is. Okay. Of course, this course is this module is about experience design, and that's why you have this XD. And we're gonna dive a little bit more into it. And the experience design, we're gonna touch the workflows, the possible workflow, and the possible workflows, and what your workflow looks like during this semester. And that's it. Nothing else. So let's start in the beginning. What is a user experience? And I grabbed some definitions from respective entities and respective people. And yeah, let's read the first one. Because there's a reason I selected many definitions. So the first one is coming from this institution. This institution is a very well, kind of the leader in the standardization in the world. And yeah, they standardize a lot of things, not only in the ICT field, but engineering and you name it, education, etc., etc. And they define as a user experience as persons' perceptions and responses resulting from the use and or anticipated use, very important, anticipated use of a product, system, or service. Yeah, system you understand by software, but product could be a hardware or software or service. So let's make a pause here and tell me your thoughts about these definitions. Is it what you align with what you thought, or do you feel like it's missing something? Do you agree? You disagree? What it's aligned with what you initially thought. Even for the inexperienced people, this is a question for all of you guys. What do you think when you read that? It's like, were you completely wrong about the idea? About the user
I agree with it, because it's essentially what the user expects to get from something that they do online, or not online, but on their computer. So it's pretty accurate, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm not going to say the names because I'm in a different... oh, let me just divide... let me just... Are you able to still see my presentation now? Are you... Watching my presentation? Yes, awesome. Awesome. Now I can see the names. Okay, John. Thank you, John. Anyone else? Look into the first definition. Oh, let me switch the question. Is there anybody in the house who says like, oh, it's completely something that I was not expecting user experience to be? It's like, wow, that is not what I was thinking. Okay, so we mostly agree, and of course, if the ISO organization is saying that, it must be true. We normally say, right? Well, quite honestly, when you look into this, I highlighted perceptions and responses for two reasons. It's like behind perceptions. If you think the user experience is more about a technology and the product itself, that you put a lot of attention in the design of the product itself, then you're wrong. Because it's actually about the people, the person. And that's why you have perceptions and responses. That means that you need to know, if you really want to become a UX person, you really need to know a lot about a lot of fields. And that is, behind perceptions, we do understand that a lot of psychology is involved, right? And how we perceive things is basically in the mind. And you know, the mind is easy to trick. And as a matter of fact, if you look around into apps or into everyday objects, there's a lot of designs that actually are made based on those psychological concepts that we will look, of course, into later in later stages. And then you have responses. And of course, when you say responses, you have to know a lot of, it has to do with how your body reacts to specific things, how your face reacts to specific things. That is physiological field. So there you go. You have two big fields already kind of combined. So I hope this gives you a little bit of a taste that UX by no means is something specific. By no means is something easy. Actually, it's very hard to become, almost impossible, I would say, to become a UX expert. I hear very often nowadays, but quite honestly, when somebody says I'm a UX expert, well, I know I have to ask questions to actually figure out what he or she is actually doing. Anyway, let's go to the next definition. That is by Chris Another. Here it is. This is a guy, UX researcher, so with lots of experience. So if you find him on the internet, I highly recommend you to follow that guy and listen to that guy. One of my presentations are highly influenced by guys like this one, especially him, and some content I would put as well from him. Yeah, it's not only his, it's also coming from the definition of Mr. Don Norman, and that is kind of the guru in user experience. Let's read this definition. User experience is a general term for all aspects of the interaction that users of a product or service have with that product and with the company that provided it. Now I want you to tell me, which one do you like best? Which one do you think it's more accurate when you think about user experience? Anyone?
Well, so for me personally, I think it's the first one still, because as you said, it's more like connected to the person, to the user who provided the responses, right? Rather than the whole company. I don't know. It's just
yeah, thank you for those thoughts. Awesome. We are having some interaction. That's how I like guys. Thank you. Anyone else? John?
Yeah, I think it's more focused towards the user rather than the company or the product itself. It's supposed to be the user comes first, he's satisfied with the product, and he gives them the feedback if he will change something to the company. But it's the user first always.
Okay, so kind of agree with Anna. Anyone else maybe? No? Okay. Yeah, I respect that. It's like a very nice thoughts in there. Quite honestly, if you ask me personally, I'll go for the next one, for the second one. Sorry, because it looks too general, but exactly that's UX. And the reason I put 3 definitions over here is because it's evolving all the time. What the UX, nobody there can actually come up with a specific definition of what the UX really is, because it encompasses so many fields, it encompasses so many concepts that it's very hard to come up with one paragraph or one sentence of what. Telling what it really specifically is. So I like the general definition in the second definition, sorry for the redundancy, because it says all aspects, you know, and yeah, it might look like a little bit vague, but yeah, that's exactly it. It's a very general term, UX, and but it's a very important thing because the second highlighted word there is interaction that users of a product service have with that product. So product is also, of course, a hardware, could be a software, could be, in this case for us, it's important, it's a web application what you're going to build. So what you have to pay attention is like all aspects of interaction between the user and your website. What does that mean, all aspects? And it's not only like me switching on the computer, but me even from the moment that I think of visiting your website or even thinking of purchasing a product, that UX starts right there. How do you actually trigger those motivations? How are you actually making seamless the process from me thinking of visiting your website until I'm actually subscribing to your website and the service after. So it encompasses all these aspects, and that's why I prefer a little bit the second definition. But it's not that that's the definition or the first one. The first one is actually more technical because it's coming from this organization, I already told you. But in either case, the same concepts apply: the psychological field, the physical field of person, the environment, many others. We will see it in a moment. The third definition is even, I would say, simpler, and that's done by the UXPA. Another thing I want to say to you guys, you know, whenever you are studying something and you find a lot of interest in that field or in that specific concept, one of the things I personally do is try to follow the news and validate the news of what's on there on the internet, right? But on the internet, there's so much, and believe me, when you type user experience, you get so much crap that is very hard, and that's why we end up overwhelmed and confused. So one of my advices would be follow organizations, respected organizations, official documentation or the gurus in that specific concept, in that specific field, and so you don't get easily deceived by other people's YouTube channels or any information that you might find on the internet. Because there's a lot of good information, but on the other hand, you can also find a lot of misleading information that looks like it's right. And that is kind of a major obstacle that you will definitely find in UX and the web. So to make things a little bit simpler for you, I would put, I actually did already right in the end of this presentation, a couple of links, the Webliography of this presentation, but I also grab personal recommendations. And I expect you to also go through those, maybe bookmark those. And if you're interested in becoming a UX person, then those are going to be very helpful. Okay? Because guys, let me keep it honest. I'm teaching UX, but I'm not by no means. I am a UX expert. I do not consider myself at all like that because that would be too arrogant for me to say that. However, I do have a little bit of experience. I know the pain points that this process is causing. You know, when you are starting your own company, you have to deal with all these things. And yeah, so I can share a little bit of my own personal experience, and but that we do it one-on-one meetings or in the building. I prefer so. So the third definition is an approach to product development that incorporates direct user feedback throughout the development cycle. And that development cycle, of course, is human-centered design in order to reduce costs and blah 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 blah. It's more business objectives in the definition. So what do you think about this one? An approach, simply an approach.
I think it's more simplified so that the general public can understand. Whereas the other two are more scientific and technical.
Exactly. So I like the third one because you don't need to really explain too much. You know, it's an approach and a methodology. Human-centered design is the way to go, and you always constantly listen to them and you improve your products. So it looks like, okay, that's a lot of companies are actually doing that already now, and that's what you see everywhere. Your updates of your apps, you know, like constantly. And that means they are listening to the users and they are constantly redesigning, you know, improving the product. So like very easy. However, this is from that perspective. For beginners, I would say this is a nice starting point. But it's more than this. It's way more than this, and it's too simplistic in my opinion. So what is the real definition of UX? I will tell you there is, I mean, this field is constantly evolving, despite the fact that it's like a buzzword now. It's constantly, I mean, it's not as old as people think, but it has become a little bit of a confusing topic because of the many definitions out there, because of the many people, professionals, industry, disagreeing with the term. And yeah, it's an evolving thing. It's not there is no an absolute definition. Be aware of this, guys. So if you can select one of those and try to explain what UX is. But if you ask me personally, user experience is an experience. So what I mean is like you have to undergo through these different fields, taste a little bit of the work that these guys are actually confronting every day, and after that you can build even your own definition. And when you have when you're communicating your ideas with the software developer teams or the programmers, the whole stakeholders in a specific product, the development of a product, be it the managers, be it the CEO or the programmers, it's, when you know these concepts, when you have experienced these concepts, not necessarily it means that you are an UX person, but UX specialist, but at least you can communicate, at least you have a sense, and you are confident in having these conversations with any person in the company. Or if you're starting your own company, of course that will help you, because when you're starting your company, you have to do most of the work yourself. So yeah, that being said, let's move to next slide here, and that is the UX concepts maze. And the reason I call it the maze, you can call it the whatever you want, but it's to depict confusion, to depict overwhelming concepts. And yeah, expect these guys. It's my job here. What I'm going to try to do in this course experience design is just try to guide you a little bit, and not so you don't fall into frustration. It's very easy to fall into frustration because when I give you a deadline and then this is what you get, the graph like this, for example, then you're gonna be soon be frustrated. So my job is gonna be more, rather than teaching you every single subfield here, it's just guiding you. Like, okay, what are you doing? What activity are you doing in the interaction design? Perhaps you're dealing with an interview, research your users, and maybe I'm gonna tell you, why don't you create the personas, for example, for instance. Those keywords I'm expecting are going to guide you into and save you time throughout mostly the practicals you have to do. Okay, so let me tell you again. Yeah, when you look at user experience, that's why I question when anyone comes to me and we have a nice chat and say like, I'm a UX expert, I'm a UX specialist. For me, it's immediately doubt, because first of all, I've been following, I know some gurus on the internet, like the guys who came with this term and many years and decades in the industry, and they don't even say I'm a UX expert or a specialist, or they actually try to specialize. If they are UX specialists, they actually mean UX specializing in a specific context or in a specific field, like research, for example, and not doing the whole facets of user experience. So whenever somebody's approaching and saying I'm a UX expert, a UX designer, it's like try to ask more deeper questions, like what's your job like, and then you will quickly figure out what he is in this all this maze. What is he busy with information alone? Is he really busy with visual design alone, or is he more really busy with the research part, the human factors, looking into the users and the users' needs, and then you can categorize that. Okay, so please do not fall a little bit into frustration. That's easy. If you do, the best thing you can do is just shut off your brain and it's like escape from it. Just go for a run or do whatever pleasant things you normally do, and then come back and have a chat with a UX person or teacher, and then you start over with your with your assignment or with the problem that you might have during this course. So yes, it is a maze, but no need to panic. Just let's go step by step. And one of the things that I personally like to do when I don't understand things, it's look into history. If you dislike history, yeah, I mean, you can just skip this slide and then do whatever the heck you want. But I think it is very important, because if you know the past, then it's like, you can somehow predict the future, not exactly predict, but you somehow see and understand things better. And of course, not making the same mistakes that have occurred in the past. So it was interesting because I didn't know this timeline, but at least my history was until from the 90s. But then I just quickly Googled this and the UX history, and then I found, oh damn, 4,000 before Christ, that's 6,000 years ago. So of course, they don't per se mean user experience was a thing in terms of a highly or consciously defined user experience. But you can trace back to Feng Shui 6,000 years ago. By the way, guys, this explanation, I'm not going to give you the whole explanation, of course, but you will find the Webliography in the end of the presentation, and you can read and watch all these detailed stories, what I'm telling here. Okay, so I'm expecting you to do that so you have a better understanding. So yeah, the Feng Shui, what you see here is basically a Chinese philosophy in which says, like, you know, if you keep your space organized, energy flows, and yeah, that could be already be somehow related to user experience. And I guess more than one would agree with me that if you keep your desk clean, well, my desktop is not so clean now, but you know, it's much better. You're becoming more productive, and yeah, like the Chinese philosophy says, energy flows, and yeah, you feel a bit better. Your mind, your state of mind is different. At least that's my own experience. So then we have 2,500 years ago, the ancient Greeks and ergonomics, and this is not just a story. There is a evidence that the guys were paying attention greatly to the person, you know, in order to design things. And that ancient script, it's coming from Hippocrates, in which he was a doctor working in the medicine, a physician, I guess. He was working in the medical field, and he suggested in a script he suggested how a surgery room should be set up for a surgeon to undergo or to perform the operation, the surgery. So he explains clearly and why the tools should be away from not in the way, and there's a lot of thought put into the user. So you can actually you definitely say that is user experience because it's human-centered first of all, and efficiency as well. So then we jump in the timeline into the second revolution, industrial revolution, and then there's this guy. I don't know if you know that guy, but he was working with Henry Ford, the creator of the car, and they were like obsessed and conducting some research about work efficiency, and of course in which they pay great attention to the tools and the person, how they use it, and that is basically related to user experience, even though it was not coined the term yet as such. And then in the 40s, Toyota, you know, Toyota is not only well known for the brand that they hold, the good quality of cars they make, but they are in the business industry the pioneers in terms of optimization of work. So in the 40s, they entirely designed the factories with one requirement, like everything should be easy for the users, like a human-centered approach they use. And then you have these big bands in which, the conveyor belts in which the big cars were moving, and the users were like, you know, for them the human factor was like the essential factor. So and they got super famous. I don't know if you know. A lot of these principles were copied by other big factories like DAF. I don't know if you know that company, that factory, that the trucks maker. That's a Dutch company. It's based in Eindhoven. Have you seen the DAF trucks? Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you have visited the factory yet, but I was there. And when I was there, they were explaining every single detail. It's massive. It's like, you know, like when you see on Discovery Channel, on National Geographic, how things are made, and it's exactly like that. Like so neat, and everything moves. Everything moves. The production line moves, but the people just stay. Everything is so in order. It's so clean. And that, even though that's the Toyota principle, every other factory applies the same principle. So Toyota is well known not only for cars, but also they are pioneers in methodologies, in the business aspect, how in the optimizing the business processes. You will also learn in the business side of it about this Toyota principle. So Toyota could be, that's definitely user experience, what they did there, because they were putting the human first. And then you have other stories. Henry Dreyfuss was also, I think he was, industrial engineer, yes. By the way, guys, great design, when you look at the history, great design or design breakthroughs are actually made not by designers. And that's a little bit kind of, in my opinion, weird, or maybe that is a little bit biased, but when you look inventions and great in terms of design, great inventions, these are coming from engineers, or look at these philosophers, or physicians in this case, entrepreneurs, or the tech industry. It's a bit weird, but I guess Norman talks a little bit about that in one of their videos. I'm also putting in the Webliography for you to watch it. So I highly recommend to watch those videos as well. Well, we were in 1955, and it's again, this guy was optimizing, putting the human. He was expanding a little bit the concept of the user experience. You know, it's I think it was already there, the concept of user experience, but it was not a thing. It was just looking into the person, the experience that the person has, and he gave a good definition. I don't remember by heart, but you can find it in the link in the end of this presentation. So highly recommend you to read that. And then Walt Disney, a lot of people think, that is the first truly UX person, because he was an entrepreneur, he was an actor, he was a lot of things, cartoonist, And he had a dream, and that dream was Disney World. I don't know if you know about this biography. And he wanted to create a city called Disney World, like Disneyland, but it was a little bit more advanced with a different concept, in which that city would implement the greatest scientific developments. So that city was taking those breakthroughs, implementing in the city itself, but constantly developing. So he said in mind, like, the user, the person, had to experience in the highest, had to have the highest level possible in terms of experience in the city, And his idea was like, having a city that is constantly developing and therefore never finished. So that's a lot of things. That's in a way what we do now with software. It's never finished. You always constantly improve based on the feedback of users. So this could have been as well the first UX designer. However, the tech industry came later on, and Xerox, this company, Xerox? Well, now it's kind of a company. Let me just quickly Google it. But because they were fundamentally doing research and development in Silicon Valley, they invented, if you don't know Xerox, you definitely know the mouse, and you definitely know graphical user interface. That's exactly what we're using now. So they are the creators of such a thing. And then, of course, Apple adopted those with the first personal computer with graphical interface. So, and they made it global. So the personal computer was a kind of a massive major point in terms of UX. Why? Because, technology at this point, 1970s, was like, something for the nerds, the techies, and the user, the normal consumer was just having a job and then not really paying attention to computers. So, personal computers at least. And the business was just paying the bill to these big tech companies, but not caring much about the user, not even the design, it's just, I need the computers to do the job, and that is it. However, when the personal computer revolution came out, then the users, as the last person who was actually using the computer was the person paying for that computer directly. And then user experience becomes actually a thing, and popularized in 93. Here it says 95, but it's actually 93. This guy that you see here, Donald Norman, is actually well known as Don Norman. He writes a paper or something like that when he was working at Apple, and he coined this term. He puts the term user experience as a title job, for so to say. That is a thing, and he convinces, of course, Apple was already always making good products, as you know. But this guy, Don Norman, was the design architect, or user experience architect, they called at the time. And you can read and watch videos yourself about Donald's stories told by himself. So it's very, very fun to watch those stories. And the rest is history. From that moment on, user experience becomes a thing. Every company, he somehow convinces that that's a thing to be implemented in the businesses around the world, especially the tech businesses. And now it's almost unthinkable if you are developing a product, developing software, or even a service without having this experience, user experience in mind. You might not afford enough money to pay for a UX person, but you are thinking anyway in those terms. And all this is thanks to Donald Norman. And he also opens or founds a company, and that's cool. Let me you can also find on the links in the end of the presentation. And I absolutely recommend you to add this in your bookmarks, because this guy has been the guru. He invented the term, and actually he positioned the term. So anything these guys have to say, it's valuable information for you if you want to become a user experience person. Okay. So, and the rest is basically history. Nowadays, it's, as I said, it is just overwhelming. All these terms, all these job positions that have been invented based on this term. I know we should have finished by now, but I'm just going to exceed a little bit. Or do you have another lecture? 2:30.
No, I think we have only your subject.
Okay, pretty good. Okay, so let me just exceed a little bit of. I guess I'm gonna make it max 20 minutes, and then we're done. And as I was saying, it's a general term. It's too big. It's overwhelming. So what about this? Is UX a career? Can I make a career out of it? Is it a job? What are the job titles? Or what the heck is this? Well, if you ask me personally, it's none of this. It's not a career. It's not a job. But of course, if you just Google, it's like you can build a career of it. You can even go to a company and look into the titles job that they have created, because the business industry, for saving time, they want to call somebody, and that somebody is holding a position, and they just make up some positions. And over time, especially in the last decade, plenty of these job positions have been invented. So if you're more interested in those job positions, well, I do have a slide that suggests those job positions. Here in the next one, it's if you do research of user research, well, you have a name for that, a UX researcher. If you're doing, for example, usability, you are then a UX usability tester, or you are how do you have the, oh, this is a better example, the information architecture. If you're looking into more structure in the product that you are having, then you probably most likely going to have as a position an architect, information architect, and things like that, you know. Well, because it's again overwhelming, we try to kind of categorize those and put it into, okay, who's actually doing the design specifically, who's actually doing the research, and who's actually doing the strategy. Now, by no means you should take this as the last word in the field. As I said, it's constantly evolving, but we try to put this chaos into order, and that's what I have this here nicely organized, if you like. Okay, it does not mean, for example, if you're dealing with let me see, prototyping, interface layout, interface design, visual design, and all that, then you probably are more doing or busy with the design category of the UX field, okay? Because that has to do with the design at the core. It does not mean that you only do that, but it's more kind of to categorize your job position. If you're doing, let's say, to be on the research side, then too much. In the research, of course, you're doing the research, field research, face-to-face interviewing, creation of user needs. Sorry, it says test here. Is anybody saying anything? Okay, I continue. Finding the user needs, you probably, most likely, are doing these type of jobs in the research. You are a UX researcher, okay? Listening to feedback, listening to, finding the user needs mostly is related to this category. Strategy actually means, because a UX person needs to go through the whole, needs to be aware of the whole spectrum of a company, and by putting the user in front, so putting as the center point, then you will deal not only with the user's needs once you know that, based on the research, but you will also try to align the company's strategies, the company's vision, the company, why a company wants to make such a product, and then you will start working directly, perhaps with the CEO if it's a startup, or if it's a big company, perhaps you're looking more into the tactical level of a company, which are mostly managers, okay? So you will deal with these people. So user experience is also that. Do not think that you're just going to have a fun with a nice tool like Photoshop or Figma and create awesome user interface design, and that's it. No, user experience, you need to actually cross these fields. It's a very interactive, occupation, if you like. Or profession. So yeah, it's, of course, if you're a UX person, as I said, don't take this for granted. Like, this is the division. It's not, because it simply is not. And you as a UX person, you need to understand these fields, these categories. That's the only thing I want to tell you in this slide. Okay. Now, normally it's because UID term was, and that stands for user interface design. It's longer with us than UX. And a lot of people in a company, if you say like, oh, I'm a UX, what they do understand, this is a funny, by the way, this is a funny poster that you can find on the internet. The source is in the end of the presentation as well. So what people understand, if you say that, is, oh, you're actually coming up with the mock-ups of whatever product I am working on, right? It's like, okay, I'm developing, you're coming with this interface design, and you're busy with the visuals, and that's it. There's a lot of people, don't be frustrated if you are a UX person later on, and you try to communicate with programmers, implementation teams, software engineers, and say like, yeah, I'm the UX person. It's like, okay, it's like, don't be offended, by the way, because as I said, a lot of people just, that's ignorance, you know, they're not super busy with what UX is. It's not well defined, you know, or it's well defined, but it's not reaching consensus, the specific definition. So, of UX. So don't blame them and don't take it too personal. Rather, I would suggest to teach them, to walk them through the process of UX, the workflow of UX. So, yeah, be prepared for this, because that's how you would like to be seen, but this is actually how the most of the people sees you. You're coming with a nice web design or the nice app design of my new application. And that shows only ignorance, by the way. But don't get offended by that. Just walk them through your field, I would say. Show them a little bit why the user is important, why the whole experience of the user is important. That being said, I like, this is just, I don't know if somebody there is not aware that the mic is on. Sakar, would you please? Thank you, I appreciate that. So let's get back to it. So what about UXD? Well, I already told you, UXD stands for User Experience Design. XD, I already told you, is Experience Design. IXD, any guesses for that acronym? No? No guesses? Well, that stands for Interaction Design. And the last, User Interface Design. So what is the difference? The first three, User Experience Design, Interaction Design. I'm going to use them interchangeably. So it's like, it's the same. All right? So whenever you hear me say interaction design, I mean user experience design, or the name of the course, experience design. Doesn't matter. It's the same. You should understand that. And user interface design, that's a slightly, of course, not slightly, a lot different, because user interface design is basically dealing with, okay, I'm the person, this is the machine, and I want to reach my goal. It could be like giving this presentation or creating a presentation, and user interface designer just comes up with a nice mock-up and a nice idea, implements it, and it makes me reach the goal. That's it. But he doesn't care how I think about it, how I feel about it while using this design. Like, if he cares just very little, and whatever input you can give it is straight to the design, then he would care. But he doesn't care much about the how you purchase the whole product, for example. No, not at all. He doesn't have time for that. So that's why UX is super big field, and that's why I personally dislike when somebody says like I'm a UX expert, because here you can see the amount of concepts, the amount of fields within UX that a person, should be aware of, at least. So there's a lot of psychology, and not the user interface. The user interface guys might not even know much about psychology, and he will come up with a decent interface design. But a UX design is unforgivable that you should that you will not come with a good design, because you are expected to come with a good design based on the psychology that the concepts and so on. So there's a lot of things, guys, here. But by no means, I mean that every concept here is isolated. No. You should not look at this iceberg like isolated topics, what you read there. They're intertwined. For example, I put here interaction design, and that's mostly what we're going to study in this course. But interaction design, by definition, is a subset of UX, but it considers psychology. It considers what you need to know about the user. Like the user's needs. You need to do a little bit of research. You need to do jump from interaction design to be able to come up with interaction design. You need to consider the other fields. And so don't look at these concepts in an isolated way. This is just in a graphical way useful to see a little bit of the difference between a UID and UX. That's it. So interaction design is going to be the core activity, and it's going to be the thing that we're going to learn. The methodologies that you are going to apply from next week and on, it's going to be entirely based on interaction design. Okay. So what is interaction design or experience design? By the way, let me just repeat that interaction design or experience design is going to be the same. So every time I use these terms or these acronyms interchangeably, you understand I'm referring to the same thing. So UX is not XD, but XD is interaction design, okay? Or user interaction. User experience design is not the same as just user experience. User experience is the whole field, and inside user experience, you find user experience design. Yeah. So to understand this, this is kind of a simple way to understand what the interaction design is. Since it's a subset of user experience, you can already take the definition of user experience and say that's interaction design, and there's no problem with that. Okay. Because you look at the user, you design for the user experience, and that means all aspects from the moment that before you acquire a product or service, during the use of that product or service, and even after acquiring or the use of that product or service. So that's interaction design. Okay. In simple sketch, what you have here is 3 layers. So you could say, all right, we have a strategy layer that is busy with the user needs, business needs. You have the structure layer in which you start really paying attention based on the user needs and the business needs. You really look into how should all these content, all this context, all these behaviors be a structure, and that is the interaction design in things like information architecture come in place. The content itself maybe, but the content, the final content, no, but the content in terms of context, yes. So that is interaction design. That is the layers that you will play with, even though you might be thinking, no, but I'm doing a little bit of research, so that's not interaction design. Wrong. Interaction design, it's all of it. Okay, it's the core activity of user experience field. So and finally, the presentation. Many people think that user experience design, they are busy with only this, the visual design, because that's the only thing that they actually get to see in the end. And but that's absolutely not true. This is the last layer. The last layer you will be busy with. Most of the work is done here, and the most important work is done in these 2 layers. Yeah. So keep that in mind. That the product, whatever you're creating in the end, that itself is not important. That is the outcome of what the user needs. So at all times, the person is the main concept, the main subject, and the outcome would be a product designed by you to solve that specific problem that me as a user have. So to keep it simple, let me just repeat, user experience is the big field and experience design is just a subset right there, the core activity that you will be busy with here, okay? On my next slide, experience design, usual workflow. Guys, here, again, don't take it as this is the only way of working. You can just go ahead and take experience design and workflow and Google that, and you will see like so many variations, and that's not the most important thing. The most important thing here is like there is normally an approach to a workflow added to it. And like in everything, you know, in research, the guys, what they do is they start always with a research phase. I mean, research phase in which they present a question, right? A research question. And, they look for information, they look, or they test a little bit, you know, in the lab, like they play a little bit in terms of analysis, research, and then they go and design for that problem. Like, okay, what do I need? Finding actually first the needs in the analysis phase or discovery phase. Then they do the design phase, you know, but I'm talking in very general terms. I'm not talking yet about user experience. And then they design, and after this, they come up with a design, they go and they are ready for implementation, right? Or actually the making of the product or the service, whatever that is. And finally, they test, they validate the product, and they go again with the same transition. So at the core, you always have, almost in any, even in your academic activities, when you face the internship or your graduation, you will have to face those phases as well. You have to produce some product, but you first start researching, then designing that product, and then implementing the product and testing it. And then the circle starts, or the iteration starts over. The same in user experience. So nothing really like, wow, like a novelty in here, despite the fact that when you Google workflow, you will see like many variations of it. So this is a kind of a usual thing here, what you read. And the reason I put it here is this workflow is because there are like nice interviews, observation, surveys. These are methodologies for each phase, in order to reach the goals in each phase. And you will be dealing with some of them, okay? Here, for example, you will be also creating these things, persona scenarios. In the design phase, you will also deal with this. I don't know if branding, maybe that's in the future, when you select the media. And so on. It's like, that's what you will be busy with in each phase. Well, as I said, there are many variations. This is what you are going to be busy with. So, despite the fact that you see different concepts in here, is exactly the same what I just said. You know, analysis, research, then you design, then you test, and then you, I'm missing something. Research, design, implementation, of course, and then testing, and the cycle starts again. This is the same with different wording, and there's an empathize here thing concept. It's also kind of a buzzword nowadays, like. Yeah, we will see when the time comes. I guess in the next week we'll look a little bit more into how to empathize with the user, because that's a very important concept when you are considering user experience. Anyway, we will look into throughout the weeks. Here you see the number of the weeks and what phase you're going to face and what you have to do. We will explain and work together. Now, I think that is my presentation. I want to give you or leave you with this question and. By the way, I'm going to show you the Webliography. So this has been constructed. This presentation has been constructed based on these links. Maybe you don't have an account in LinkedIn for the courses. Yeah, that's a pity. But you can find a relative similar content based on what you have seen in this presentation. So that's it. And recommended links. As I said, I expect you to go through it because it's fun stories over there. Some videos as well. Not here, but I constantly will output these links somewhere for you to read or just get informed about UX. Now I want to leave you with this question, but maybe somebody can already just share some thoughts about this. I don't know if you look. First of all, Neuralink. What is that? Anyone? No one, or you're just too tired? Maybe like it's been enough, right? Me talking. Yeah, we're gonna do it a little bit different next time anyway. Okay, guys, you just Google this. It's a breakthrough going on in the world, and I'm interested since I'm teaching this user experience. Like how would you approach in terms of interaction design in Neuralink from Elon Musk? Huh? That's the one I'm talking about. Neuralink, Elon Musk, and then maybe we can discuss about this topic in class, face to face. All right, guys. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.